Morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us. I'm Zhiwei from the National University of Singapore.
I'm Ziyu from Singapore Management University. Today, we are honored to present our work titled CDN Panel, Exploiting CDN Back-to-Origin Strategies for Amplification Attacks. Let's dive in. Now, you may be wondering, what exactly is a CDN, or Content Delivery Networks? Some of you may already know, and for those who don't, you have almost certainly used without even realizing it. You can see the figure. Without a CDN, users accessing a website directly could experience slow load times, and worse still, the website's real IP address would be exposed. Now, enter the magic of CDNs. A CDN is essentially a global distributed network of servers that caches content closer to end users. Think of it as a high-speed shortcut for accessing web content. You can see the right figure. When a website is hosted behind CDN, users can connect to the nearest CDN server, dramatically speeding up content delivery. And that's not all. The CDN also acts as a shield hiding the website's real IP address. This brings the real advantage, like improved website load times, reduce bandwidth costs, and provide DDoS defense. Given these benefits, it's not surprising that CDN has become an indispensable part of Internet. You can look at this figure. The horizontal axis shows time from 2000 to 2024, and the vertical axis shows the number of websites hosted on CDN. In fact, as of today, approximately 60% of Alex top 10,000 websites deployed behind CDN. So clearly, CDN has become an underlying internet infrastructure. Let's take a closer look at how a CDN works. When a client sends a request to access a website, it's first directed to a nearby CDN server. Then the CDN server forwards the request to the origin server if it missed the cache. In this scenario, an end-to-end connection between client and the origin server is broken into client CDN and CDN origin connection. This intermediary role is key because it allows the CDN to process and filter traffic before forwarding it to the origin server. As mentioned earlier, CDN can defend against DDoS attack. So let's take a look at traditional DDoS attacks and how CDN mitigate them. DDoS attacks aim to overwhelm a target server by flooding it with excessive traffic, often rendering it unavailable to legitimate users. While traditional DDoS attacks have widely used, they come with a significant drawback. A fundamental requirement for such attack is a botnet. So what is a botnet? A botnet is a network of compromised devices controlled by attackers. However, building and maintaining a botnet is resource intensive. This high cost often makes traditional DDoS attack impractical for many attackers. Even if an attacker successfully builds a large botnet, launching a traditional DDoS attack against a target protected by a CDN is largely ineffective. CDN are specially designed to observe and mitigate massive volume of traffic, including those generated by botnets, through globally distributed servers and intelligent load balancing mechanism. CDN prevent the origin server from becoming overwhelmed by malicious traffic. This strong defense forced the attacker to reconsider their strategies. Instead of attempting to overwhelm the CDN server, attackers have shifted their focus to exploiting vulnerabilities within the CDN. using it to launch attack directory. This approach can bypass CDN's DDoS defense. So how do attackers find vulnerabilities in CDN? One of the most concerning weaknesses comes from back-to-origin strategies, which were originally designed to optimize CDN performance. These strategies can broadly be divided in two categories. The first category is that the CDN improves the cache hit rate to reduce the burden on origin server and speed up a response. For example, if the client sends an HTTP request, CDN receive the request and find it has hit the cache. Then CDN will respond directly. The second category is that the CDN modify HTTP request or response to reduce client traffic and improve compatibilities with the virus website. For instance, if an origin server does not support image compression, the CDN may handle it on behalf of the origin server. However, this optimization comes at the cost of security. Back-to-origin strategies introduce new vulnerabilities that can be abused by attackers. This brings us to our research. We propose a novel amplification attack called BtOAmp, which explored CDN back-to-origin strategies. Let's dive into how it explored. Let's see the first strategy. It's the image optimization strategy. With the increasing use of high-resolution images on modern web page, the size of these images has grown significantly. This has resulted in slower loading times and delayed access to web content, particularly for users with limited bandwidth. So to tackle this issue, CDN windows have implemented a variety of strategies to optimize image delivery. These image optimization techniques can be broadly categorized in two types. The first is image compression. In this approach, the CDN compresses the image based on the client's requirement, significantly reducing the bandwidth needed for delivery while maintaining acceptable visual quality. For example, when a client requests an image with specific query parameters like format equal WebP, then CDN will remove the query parameters and fetch the original PNG images and convert it image format to WebP and deliver it to client. The second is image copying, when the CDN copies the image according to the client's specification, further minimizing traffic. For example, a client may request an image with specific copying parameter, such as cop 100,100. Then the CDN removes the copying parameter and fetch the original image from the origin server. The CDN then copies the image to 100 times 100 pixels before delivering it to the client. However, most CDN windows do not enforce strict limitation on the parameter used in these optimization strategies. This lack of restriction opens the door for attacker to exploiting the CDN, turning into a simple optimization strategy into a powerful amplification attack. Let's take a closer look at how attacker can exploit for amplification attack. When a CDN processes an image optimization request, it relies on the query parameters provided by by client. For instance, an attacker could send a carefully crafted request asking the CDN to copy an image down to a single pixel. Here's how the attacker unfolds. The attacker sends an image optimization request to the CDN with specific parameter like crop equal 1, 1. The CDN removes the query parameters and retrieve the original high-resolution image from the origin server. It processes the request by copying copying the image down to a single pixel and delivering the copied result to the attacker. This process creates a significant traffic imbalance, as the attacker only receives a single pixel from the CDN, while the CDN is forced to fetch the full-size image from the origin server. By repeating sending such requests, the attacker can overwhelm the origin server's bandwidth easily. So let's see the next strategy. CDN also improves request modification strategy to meet practical business needs, such as passing client's IP to the origin server or handle changes in file storage location on the origin server. For instance, in the first scenario, CDN can add an HTTP header, such as the X-forwarded full header in the forwarding request. This allows the origin server to identify client's real IP address, which is often necessary for logging or access control. In another scenario, when a file storage location changes on the origin server, customers can configure URL writing in the CDN without modifying the client's code. The client still requires the origin server, while the CDN retrieves the corresponding resource. This flexibility simplifies maintenance and improves operational efficiency. However, this convenience comes with a trade-off. Most CDN do not enforce strict limitation on the size of modified HTTP request. We found the attacker can expose request modification strategy to launch amplification attack. So let's break down how an attacker can exploit this strategy to launch amplification attack. The first step is simple. The attacker just registers a free trial account with a CDN provider and deploy the victim's website behind the CDN. You can see the figures. Attacker just put the victim.com on the origin URL. Next, the attacker configures the request modification strategy. Specifically, he instructs the CDN to append a large number of oversized HTTP headers to forwarding request and rewrite the original URL into an excessive long one. You can see the figure. Attacker add a very large A HTTP header and change the root URL into a lot of A. Finally, the attacker begins sending multiple post requests to the CDN. These small requests are harmless on the attacker CDN connection, but as the CDN forwards them to the origin server, it modifies each one into a significantly larger request. This amplification effect causes the origin server's bandwidth to be quickly consumed, rendering the website inaccessible. Now, I will hand over the presentation to my collaborator, Zhiwei, who will dive deeper into other attacks evaluation and mitigation for this attack. Please welcome Zhiwei.
Okay, thanks for Ziyu to the great introduction. Now, let's move on a new strategy, the method conversion strategy. So under the normal scenarios, a client might send a header request just to check whether a resource on the origin server has been updated. So there are usually two possibilities. If the resource is already cached at the CDN, The header request is simply forwarded to the origin server, which then responds with the header information only, like without the content body. But here is the test. If the resource is no cached, the CDN will actually apply what we call the meta conversion strategy. This mechanism was originally designed to improve the user experience and the caching efficiency. The idea is when the user sends a header request, there is a high chance that they'll soon request the full content. So the CDN proactively converts the header request into a GET request, fetch the entire resource from the origin, and then only return the headers to the user. As a result, when the next time the user sends a GET request, the content is already cached on the CDN, so it can just directly return the content from the CDN cache, leading to a much faster user experience. Okay, it sounds great, but if we look at it more closely, there's a big problem. When the CDN doesn't have the resource cached, the header request becomes a GET request, and the origin server sends back the full response, but client still only gets the headers. So this creates an asymmetric traffic pattern. The small request on one side and the large response on the other side. If it can be abused, this behavior can also be weaponized as our amplification attacks. So how does this attack work? It's actually simple. The attacker just needs to bypass the CDN cache mechanism and send a massive number of the header requests. Each one gets converted into a GET request at the origin. It can cause huge traffic from the origin server, while the client only receives the minimal data. So, and then next, we'll introduce another strategy, the connection decoupling. So in the absence of the CDN, when a client sends a request to the origin server, but the connection drops, okay, the client has to resend the request and re-download the content. This wastes both the client's time and the origin server's bandwidth. So with the advent of the CDNs, the CDN acts as a middle layer for the better net performance. So when the client network is unstable and the connection is interrupted, the CDN can still maintain the CDN to origin connection to fetch the requested resource from the origin and catch this. So in such cases, when the client reconnects and sends the same request, it hits the CDN cache directly, which then responds to the resource without forwarding to the origin again. So this strategy saves the bandwidth at the origin and improves the user experience on the client side. According to this strategy, it's easy to find an attack surface. If an attacker sent a request and then disconnected the client-side connection, so the CDN may still complete the fetch from the origin and catch the full response. This leads to a traffic amplification. Because the attacker caused the origin to send data even after the client has disconnected. In fact, as early as 2009, the trial course had found that attacker can use this connection to maintain the CDN origin connection, even after the client to CDN connection is closed. It can launch in the amplification attacks by abusing the CDN as a man in the middle. But nowadays, many CDNs has mitigated this risk by automatically close the CDN to origin connection once the client is disconnected. So does this mean that this attack no longer works? No, exactly. So through our experimentation, we found that by using the header transfer encoding tract, the attack become effective again. So by bypassing the CDN cache and including this header in the request, the origin server continues to respond to the full resource even after the client disconnects. As a result, the attackers can revive the connection decoupling attack by sending many such requests. By now, we have introduced 4 types of attacks. You may have noticed that a common requirement of all of them is the cache bypassing. So if a CDN caches the resource, a subsequent request will be served directly from the CDN cache. So without hitting the origin server, this means the attack would fail to consume the origin resources. So to carry out the attack effectively, we must bypass the CDN cache first. For example, if we add a parameter like s equal to 123 to the request URL, the CDN will treat this as a separate cache key. This means it will catch the response for like a.png with the parameter s equal to 123 separately from a.png, even though the base path is the same. In another word, if we change the parameter s equal to 234, it will be treated as a new request not previously cached. So by like randomizing the URL parameters, it allows us to bypass the CDN cache. And in total, we have summarized 7 techniques for bypassing the CDN cache mechanisms. This includes both like URL modifications and the use of some specific headers. These strategies are essential for launching the attack we discussed, and they ensure that the request will forward it to the origin server for every request. So to validate the attacks, we designed our experiments and conducted it in a real-world environment. Now we have covered the 4 different types of attacks. Let's look at how we tested them in the real world. So to avoid hitting any third-party targets, we set up our own test environment. We use a cloud server located in Silicon Valley as the victim. It's running an HTTP service on 1 Gbps. And the attacker was a low bandwidth VPS located in Singapore. It's running only just like 30 Mbps. So let's take the request modification attack as an example. We first hosted our HTTP service as a victim on like the Bunny CDN and modified its configuration to add a large number of oversized headers during the request forwarding process. Then we sent many requests from our client and measured the traffic on both ends. What we found was striking. Just the kilobits of the input traffic on the client side result in gigabits of the traffic from the origin. So this can validate the effectiveness of our attack in practice. But of course, we are not the real attackers. Our goal isn't to break things, is to understand how to defend against these kinds of abuse. So based on our research and some discussions with CDN vendors, we proposed 4 key mitigations strategies to prevent this abuse. So the first one is to limit the parameters in the back-to-origin strategies. This imposed the limitations on the parameters to prevent the traffic consumption gap between the 2 connections. And the second one is to validate the ownership of the customer supplied origin configuration. It can stop the CDN be abused to attack the third-party targets, but can still attack the website hosted on the CDN. And the third one is simple. It's just to follow the RFC standards for request forwarding. It means that we just need to directly forward the header request and not converted it into the GET request. And the final one is for the connection decoupling. We need to synchronize the client to CDN and CDN to origin connections. Because the CDN can just keep the connections for like a few seconds and cut it off if the client don't reconnect. And so far, we have reported its issues to all of the 14 CDN vendors we tested. So out of those, 12 CDN vendors acknowledged to receive our reports, and 11 vendors confirmed the vulnerabilities exist. As for now, like 5 vendors have actually patched our vulnerabilities. So of course, since we only tested the 14 vendors, it's very likely that other CDNs also be affected. So even if we don't have directly verified it yet. So to summarize, through this talk, we can know that the fundamental cause of this vulnerability is that the bandwidth resource of the CDN far exceed those of the origin server. It means CDN traded the bandwidth for speed, but the attackers can exploit its design. And the second one is that some specifications need to consider the impact on the resource consumption by the real-world implementations. Okay, thanks for your listening. We'll now be happy to take questions. And feel free to scan the QR code for our full paper. Okay, thanks.